Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, future statesmen and stateswomen in training. We follow the Youth Parliament and we ask, where's the Mayor? This week with Andrew Leonard, Mayor of Louth. And I'll be reviewing the week's regional press with Pete Scorer, head coach of the Humber Warhawks, an American football team, and Steve Hopkins, the offensive line coach. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Richards. First of all, it's over to Dan Kemp for the news headlines.
Police are appealing for a local cricketer to return home. Daniel Collinson was last seen after leaving work in Heddon on Monday morning to attend a meeting, but failed to return. Concern has been raised for his welfare as he's not been seen or been in touch with his family since the 2nd of March, which is extremely out of character. He's described as 5 foot 8 inches tall and of stocky build with short brown hair and a beard. When last seen, he was wearing blue jeans, a black and white Hull FC zip up top and white Adidas trainers. He was also carrying a backpack. Anyone with more information is encouraged to contact Humberside Police. Hundreds of would-be construction workers will visit local building sites over the next couple of days to get a vital insight into the industry. It's part of a national campaign called Open Doors that hopes to show young people that roles in construction are many more diverse than people realise. Sites at Hesle High, Flemingate in Beverley and the University Training Centre in Scunthorpe are all taking part.
Variety of jobs in construction. There's a huge range of jobs and many people don't know what, for example, a quantity surveyor might do, a design engineer. People have an image of construction and it's moved on a lot. So it's all about showcasing just what opportunities are available in construction.
A famous trawler in Grimsby needs renovation work. The Ross Tiger, the last of the great Grimsby side trawlers, is a vital attraction for the town's Fishing Heritage Centre, drawing up to 80,000 visitors a year. Ultrasound tests show that hull is covered in mussels and may be thinning. David Ormsby from the Fishing Heritage Centre emphasised that a plan needs to be put in place to repair the trawler.
Right, well I think it's maybe scared a lot of people when they hear about things like the hull thinning and things like that, but there's nothing at the minute. I think that's the biggest thing to say that's really worrying. The whole point of what we're doing at the moment is to try and sort of lay the stones to put things in place to make sure that we can secure the future for the ship and make sure that we don't ever get to a point where she is really in need, and then of course we try and start something that's going to take a long time to do. So we're just looking at options and people that might be able to help us to make sure that Grimsby's got the Ross Tiger for a long time to come.
That's all from me for now. If you've got any news for us, then please don't hesitate to contact us on Grimsby 01472 31553 or contact us through Twitter or by Facebook. That's all for now.
I'm joined in the studio by Pete Scorer and Steve Hopkins of the Humber Warhawks American Football Club. Gentlemen, welcome both.
Hi.
Steve, I introduced you as the offensive line coach. You seem perfectly charming to me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but on the field it's a different story. It can be.
What are the Humber Warhawks?
The Humber Warhawks is a team that's been joined together by two teams, one from Grimsby and one from Hull. It was initially the Kingston Warhawks and the Grimsby Scorpions.
Right.
And the decision was made a time ago that they would merge together and become one team.
And Pete, what's the attraction of American football? It's really all that padding and everything. It's just rugby for girls, isn't it?
No, it's difference between rugby and football. I've played rugby at quite a high level, at amateur level. You pull out certain hits, you don't go 100% into tackles. American football, you don't care. You've got the protection, you use it as a weapon.
It is a game of stop-starts though, isn't it? You
Yes.
play for about 28 seconds and then you have a bit of a 5-minute breather.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes you need it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need it, especially when you're at my age.
Well, any age.
Any age, really. But yeah, it does take a little bit longer and people don't understand why. It's the plays, it's the how long it takes. You've got to gain yardage. On
what I believe is called the gridiron. The
gridiron field, yeah. And you've got to gain the yardage to win the game, basically.
Just give you, before we move on to the newspapers, Pete, I'll give you the chance to do a quick plug. How can people get involved in American football with the Warhawks? Where can they go to see you?
We have website humberwarhawks.co.uk. We're on the Facebook group. We play at Hull Engines on Springhead Lane in Anlaby, just outside of Hull. Contact us anywhere on their websites or anything else. We've got all the contact details on there.
Excellent.
We've got a game on March the 15th, which is our first friendly.
Okay, very good. Let's have a look at the newspapers. What's the the first story you found? I mean, your team is called the Warhawks. This is quite an appropriate story. Police plea over a buzzard injury. It's a sad story, though, this one, isn't it? This is from the Driffield newspaper. Horrible.
It is, very.
What's happened is this buzzard was clearly trapped in some way. It lost a leg, and sadly the police found it, and the vet had to put it down. Now, what do we think of these traps?
It's wrong. It's wrong. They're animals. There's that many animals now going. We're losing so many animals a year, and they're disappearing. We'll never see them again. And doing this, it's endangered creatures. There's no need.
And other animals as well. They're reducing in numbers. You know, and if you're an animal lover, you just hate it.
There is a suggestion there that we've been running stories earlier this week about a plague of rats, which sounds rather sort of Pied Piper, but farms are suffering from rats, which of course carry diseases. There needs to be some way of controlling vermin, doesn't there?
Yes.
And occasionally that's going to get the wrong animal as well.
Yeah, it will, because other animals are going to pick up the food, the poison, or whatever it might be. They might get caught in traps, but
there's methods to use.
There's methods, yeah. There's ways of doing it.
Yeah. Found another one here. I think this is one that you picked up, Pete.
Yes, yeah.
Benefits fraudster to repay money. It's at the bottom of the page here in the... which newspaper is that? In the Bridlington, again, the Bridlington Free Press. Benefits fraudster to repay money. Tell us about this, the sentencing that you noticed
it's absolutely
there.
Ridiculous. They've taken £8,500 in benefits. Granted, it could have been by accident. A lot of the time it's not. And they've got 120 hours community service, and they have to pay £200 back. £200 won't even pay for the solicitor's fees. I would love to be paid £8,500 for 120 hours work.
That works out at a generous hourly rate, doesn't it?
It's about £75 an hour.
Yeah,
I would love for that.
So what's the suggestion? How would you sentence benefits fraudsters?
I would make it more cram. You know, you've got to do something that fits the cram, really. 120 hours, nah. I would make them doing a lot more. Make it worthwhile. Make them pay. Let them have national minimum wage.
Right.
Let them do 1,000 hours.
What, sort of put a lien on their income?
Yeah.
But if they're claiming benefit fraudulently or not, perhaps they don't have an income other than that benefit.
Exactly, they're unemployed. So what they're doing with the time?
It's very difficult to know how to solve that problem, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if they're unemployed, it's not going to affect them working.
Okay. We'll come on to that story in a bit. There's another story here, which is the evictions. It's a similar story. I think it was another one that you picked, Pete.
Yes, yeah. They're saying it's a 4-year high out in North Lincolnshire.
A 4-year high of evictions in North Lincolnshire of public housing or of private housing?
It's private housing, like the sheltered accommodations and things like that. And again, a lot of that comes down to benefits.
Gentlemen, we'll come back and do some more stories in a moment, but we'll just have to stop there for a second. Politics can be a bit dull at any age, but especially for young people who feel they're often misrepresented in Parliament. However, last year's Scottish referendum, when 16 and 17-year-olds could vote for the first time, showed that young people want to join in political debate. The Youth Parliament is one institution trying to engage young people in politics. Dave Nunn is at the dispatch box.
Young people have often been labelled as lazy or uninterested in politics, but for Alfie and Salima, their enthusiasm is clear after winning North East Lincolnshire's Youth Parliament elections.
I feel overwhelmed, like I did not think that I'd win, but it's such a good feeling.
I'm speechless. It's just amazing to be a part of it now, and I just really want it, I'm just speechless. Just shocked, but
With the Scottish referendum allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote for the first time on the future of their nation, proposals may see them allowed to vote in general elections with an aim of making politics exciting to young people, something which is very important to the Youth Parliament reps.
Of course, then they are the future, and then if they're involved in politics now, then they'll be involved in politics in the future and there'll be less political apathy.
I think it's really important that they get involved, because one thing that really annoys me is when young people go, we hate the government that are in now, and I think, well, your voice will be heard, it doesn't matter, and I think they should always have their viewpoint, not just the older people. It should be always young people as well as the older generation. So.
The idea of politicians interacting with young people to engage them is something Alfie and Salima support.
Also like go into schools and then talk to teachers and then also get the young people involved, just as we did for getting the votes, like going into schools, getting the council members involved and showing that they can make such a difference, especially because it's worked in other regions, so why would it not work in North East Lincolnshire? So like through the residentials and getting all the opinions from different people, we'll be able to make a difference.
Future governments could rely on the votes of today's youngsters to get them into power, so schemes like the Youth Parliament will ensure young people are engaged with politics.
You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later in this programme, we go onto the streets of Grimsby to canvass your views on drugs, and Dan Kemp will bring you all the sports news. Now it's time to catch up with the municipal duties of Mayor Andrew Leonard, first citizen of Louth.
The role of the Louth Mayor is quite an interesting one because you do get to meet lots of people through the functions that you attend, not only in the town but also outside the town. Each mayor probably has their own sort of charity fundraising events, but you also attend events within the community. That could be this week, for example, I'm opening a new shop in town. Last week I was attending a Lions charity charter dinner. There's lots of different things, civic events. We have obviously Remembrance Sunday, then you have things like Christmas events. So going throughout the year, there's a rich pattern of things happening over the period. And certainly key dates in the diary are punctuated by what is happening locally. And then obviously you build around that. I've given as a mayor a preference to things that are happening locally for me. And obviously if I can tend to things further afield, then I will do. It does vary. Some of the events you go to are sort of in, say, for example, you might go to Lincoln Cathedral for a civic event. We were there recently for the Mayor of Lincoln's civic event. You attend that, and you represent the town as you do with all these events. Coming up in the forthcoming weeks, we've got, starting from the 10th of March, is what's known in council terms as a purdah period, which means it's the run-up to the new elections coming up in May. And from that point on, whilst I can, as a mayor, can still carry on doing civic events, generally councillors tend to avoid any sort of high-profile things because they can't be seen to be promoting themselves on a run-up to an election, essentially. So, as I say, whilst I carry on doing things, in a couple of weeks' time we're at the Market Raisin sort of charity event for the Mayor of Market Raisin and various other things. We've got Requiem at the church coming up, various other things. So we carry on doing the business of the town council, but actually in respect of myself personally, obviously I have to sort of take a bit more of a back seat and they slow down towards the election, at which point my term of office will end.
The Deputy Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Democrats, Nick Clegg, has recently suggested that possession of cannabis for personal use should no longer be prosecuted. We test the street value of his idea.
Well, I really think it can lead on to worse things if they're not stopped, probably in the tracks. I don't know. I mean, I've not had any dealings with drugs, so my gut feeling is that probably a little bit of cannabis is not over the top, but more than that does your head in, so I understand.
I used to work in the hospital in Brighton, and Brighton was the drugs capital of the world. So many people used to overdose themselves and everything. And I reckon if you let people say what drugs they wanted, but don't give them any medical help afterwards, and it's down to them.
I think all drugs should be legalised. Then we can monitor the situation. People won't take overdoses because it will be a responsible, delivered amount that's controlled. We can have like proper information given with the drugs. You ought to be able to go down the chemist and buy heroin, marijuana, cocaine, anything you want.
Depends whether they're for medical reasons, doesn't it? If it's not for medical reasons, obviously yes.
I don't know really. I mean, there's for and against, isn't there? Depends what the drug is. I mean, some people need to relax and they don't. Other people take too much and end up in... You can't say, can you? They'll get it whether you have a law or not. They'll abuse the law. Somebody will sell it because they want to make money. That's right, isn't it? They pass all these laws and nobody abides by them, basically speaking, because there's no law enforcement anymore.
Pete and Steve are still with me for a few more newspaper stories. Pete, something in the Scunthorpe Telegraph you found there about local council debt collection.
Yes, yeah, it does mean a bit to me. The fact that the council have written off just over £1.5 million in uncollectible council tax debts.
£1.5 million?
That's a lot of money.
If that money could be collected, then maybe our council taxes could go down a little bit.
Yes, you work out the figures and price per head, and you could probably knock off £300-400 per person, per household.
That's a very tempting idea, isn't it? Why isn't the council collecting these debts? Why aren't people paying up?
Well, that's the question. It all depends on the council themselves. At the end of the day, £1.5 million. You're talking, what, about 110 people, full-time jobs have just lost. It's a lot of people without work.
Yeah.
So that money's got to come from somewhere.
Okay. Move back over to the Grimsby side of things now. Steve, you've found a story here. Protest over Homes plan. There's a plan here to develop an area of Old Clegg.
Yeah, I live down Old Clegg, the Old Clegg area. It's a nice little area. I must admit I haven't read a lot about this, but reading at the story, I'm just wondering whether the developers have seen this properly and looked at it properly, because what the guys are saying on there is regarding the cars and everything like that, it could be a big deal.
We do have a housing shortage, though. We have people can't afford to buy homes.
There's a lot of land around.
Yeah, but you don't want to be building on the beautiful, putting housing estates on the wolds or anything like that.
But at the end of the day, you've got to build somewhere, but there again, you've got to be looking after what you've got.
Talking of building, though, and particularly important buildings, in the same newspaper, this one caught your eye.
Yeah, it did.
Pier inside this stunning resort venue. Oh, they're attempting a pun on the word pier here, but they haven't quite brought it off. It's the Cleethorpes Pier. It could look. That looks like some wonderful 1920s ballroom or nightclub, or it looks like the dining room with the. Well, I was going to say the Titanic, but of a happier ship.
It looks fantastic, doesn't it? And the question to me is, if only, if it comes along, then fine. Does it fit into Cleethorpes? We don't know.
Well,
it's a big chance to take.
It could transform Cleethorpes, couldn't it?
It could do. Yeah. It could do.
How want to go?
Do you often come across the river, Pete?
Quite regularly, yes. And something like that, you get something on in that venue, it would attract you. It would attract me to come across.
I think it's fantastic because that beautiful pier, slightly stubby pier, it has to be admitted, but it needs some sort of...
From what it was some years ago.
Well, quite, yeah. Now, equally, another happy story. This one's probably more for you, Pete, but the Pride is back. I'm not going to read out this headline, but it's a suggestion that Hull, which people might once have perceived as a slightly unpleasant kind of a city, is the Sunday Times has now found it to be one of the most desirable places to live in the country.
Good, so it should do. I've got a lot of friends. I went to university myself. A lot of friends been to university. I know a lot of lads at uni, and they come to Hull, they study, they never go away. And the ones that do go away, they come back so regular. Well, it's a lovely town.
And it has a couple of extra things going for it in the next few years, of course, doesn't it?
City of Culture.
City of Culture. Yeah. And of course, we're all aware, all on Humberside, that the economy is likely to get a bit more lively with the renewable energy. Yeah, with the wind farms. Yeah. Anyway, splendid not a splendid headline, but splendid news for Hull. And it doesn't surprise me in the least. Of course, it's one of the most desirable places in the country to live.
Yeah.
Here we are. This is another story about... this is from the Hull Daily Mail as well. Injured soldier helping others to readjust to life. After losing a leg in Afghanistan, the veteran becomes a Help for Heroes mentor. Yes. I think that was yours.
Yes, yeah. Hats off to the guy. Absolutely brilliant what he's doing. He's been made disabled by an IED. He's come back and he's doing everything he can to help people in the same situation. Hats off to the guy. Absolutely fantastic.
Are we doing enough to look after our veterans? These people go off and try to fight the people who wish us harm.
No, it's not good enough on some of on all of the soldiers. I'm not going to say some of them. They've put their bodies in front of us, and this is what it leads up to.
And a lot of them just ignore the PTSD that goes on.
post-traumatic stress disorder.
They're just
much more to help. Very quickly, one more story. This is a Grimsby story. Dangerous drivers near miss days after tragedy. Very quickly, just to tell me what happened there, Steve.
It's terrible. It's so inconsiderate. You know, people read these stories and what have you, and they still go and do the same things. It's inconsiderate drivers.
It's a well-known black spot, dangerous black spot, and people are still practically killing each other. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now here is Dan Kemp with the sport.
It's a crucial point in the season for Scunthorpe United. The Iron are at Crewe Alexandra tomorrow afternoon and are equidistant between the bottom club in the playoffs, Doncaster Rovers, and 21st place Leyton Orient. United also have a game in hand in their pursuit of the former. Elsewhere, Grimsby Town are also on the road at playoff chasing Woking. Town have a clean bill of health going into the match after Ollie Palmer returned to action in last weekend's game with Braintree. FA Trophy finalists North Ferriby United host Lowestoft Town. The Villagers are still fighting to try and make the playoffs despite being 12 points adrift. They do have up to 3 games in hand over the teams above them. Hull FC threw away a half-time lead to go down 43-12 to the Leeds Rhinos last night. Leon Price went over twice for the Black and Whites, but 7 unanswered second-period tries gave the win to the West Yorkshire visitors. And across the city, Hull KR play the host to the Warrington Wolves at Halliwell Jones Stadium with a 3 p.m. kick-off on Sunday. And in Rugby Union, National League 2 North leaders Hull Ionians host Chester, and at the other end of the table, Hull IUFC play away at mid-table Broad Street, having not played last weekend. Meanwhile, Midlands 3 mid-tablers Scunthorpe play away to Sutton Coldfield. There's Hull Stingrays action too. They have a double-header in Scotland with away games at the Fife Flyers and the Dundee Stars. Face-off in those games are 7:15 and 6:30 respectively. And back to football, there are plenty of Northern Counties East League games to look forward to. Barton Town Old Boys and Bridlington Town both have home ties in the Premier Division, as do Bottisford Town, Gainsborough Trinity and Louth Town in Division 1. Winterton Rangers and Hall Road Rangers are both away. And that's all for the sport.
Thanks, Dan. We can't do a newspaper review without mentioning the Hull Daily Mail's new design. Very clean and slick and stylish it looks as well. You're a Hull man. Pete, what do you think of it?
You get lost. It doesn't stand out.
Really?
Yeah, for me it doesn't stand out. It's discerning between that and the headlines. There's nothing there.
You prefer the old style?
Yeah, definitely prefer the old style.
Week?
Yes.
All right, well, maybe they should be taking note of that. Nothing should change, nothing good will come of it, mark my words. That's all we have time for, I'm afraid. If you have a story for us, then please go to our Facebook or Twitter pages. Details on the screen, email news@estuary.tv or phone Grimsby 31553. Until tomorrow, good evening.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Saturday rather cloudy but mainly dry with some bright spells, especially in the east. Strong gusty winds through the day but it should still feel mild with a maximum temperature of 13 degrees. Sunday cloudy with some rain to start but becoming brighter with winds easing.